we go.
And as soon as I get the old script up, we'll be ready to go. Welcome committee members and members of the public to this March 13th, 2024 Governor's Workforce Development Board Executive Committee meeting. For the record, I'm Hugh Anderson, Chairman of the Governor's Workforce Development Board. Katie, will you please take roll call, confirm a quorum, and verify posting?
Sure thing, Mr. Chair. So first we have Chair Anderson.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Evans.
Present.
Thank you. Crystal Slaughter.
Present.
Thank you. Robert Benner.
Present.
Okay, we have Jerry Merritt.
Present.
Thank you. Scott Hammond. Let's see him on there. And then we had one pre-notified absence, Mr. Chair. That was for Councilman Black. And then Mr. Chair, Katie Gilbertson, Governor's Office Workforce Innovation for the record. I hereby affirm this March 13th, 2024 Governor's Workforce Development Board meeting has reached a quorum. And I further affirm that the notice and agenda for this meeting were properly posted pursuant to Nevada's open meeting law and NRS 241020.
Thank you very much. Before we proceed, I kindly request that anybody who speaks today identify themselves for the record. And moving on to agenda item number 4, public comments. Members of the public on remote technology are invited to provide comments at this time. No action may be taken on any matters during public comments until the matter itself has been included on an agenda as an item for possible action. Do we have anybody on the phone or the Zoom call, Katie?
Seeing none.
All right. Moving on to agenda item number 5. Is there any discussion before I call for a motion to approve the January 17th, 2024 Executive Committee minutes? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for a motion to approve the January 17th, 2024 Executive Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Crystal Slaughter for the record, motion.
Thank you. Second?
Ken Evans, second.
Thank you, Ken. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Let the record show the motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 6 for discussion and information only. The chair recognizes Owen Policy Analyst Katie Gilbertson to give an update on the WIOA State Plan and Governor's Workforce Development Board Strategic Plan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie Gilbertson again for the record. So yeah, quick update on WIOA State Plan and then the strategic plan. So the WIOA State Plan was successfully submitted to the U.S. Department of Labor and Department of Education on March 4th. I see Nancy and Ariana on here. So, again, big thank you to them for helping us develop and write and submit that. And so, yeah, so now what's going to happen is the feds have 90 days to review the plan we have submitted. If they like it, it's considered approved and we get no comments. If not, we'll get some feedback. Then we'll have to make some revisions to it, and the plan has to be approved prior to July 1st. But so majority of the work's already done though. So that's the good news. The Governor's Workforce Development Board Strategic Plan. This is the first strategic plan that will be developed for the Workforce Board. So how that's going on right now is that there is a task force of about 5 to 6 members that are meeting periodically to kind of go over what we had for the 3 goals and strategies and measurements from the WIOA State Plan, and just making those a little bit more kind of tailoring it down from being very broad and generic to very more specific goals, adding a lot more business engagement, business perspective into this strategic plan to really showcase the nexus of government and business working together to promote workforce development. So right now we're going to have a initial draft completed by next week. Then we're going to start about a month-long stakeholder engagement process, reaching out to people. And it's going to be pretty short. So the stakeholder engagement, they won't have to read a whole lot, which is good. So the engagement's going to, go with economic development agencies, regional development agencies, chambers of commerce, business owners, state agencies, to really make sure that this this plan that the board is going to put forth captures a holistic and comprehensive approach to what they should be focusing on, what workforce development is gonna look like in the near term. The strategic plan, I think the idea is to have it updated around every 2 years or so. So we're gonna make it a short term, what can we get done in a short amount of time, action driven plan. So the goal is to have that presented to the executive committee at your guys' next meeting on May 13th. And then it's gonna go to the strategic planning subcommittee on June 6th and then be approved by the full board on June 12th. And then we'll have a strategic plan.
I appreciate your optimism, Katie. I also want to commend Vice Chair Ken Evans, who initiated this whole endeavor and is spearheading it with a very, very tight timeline. So we have a workable document to lead us forward. So Ken, do you want to toss in anything before we move on?
No, not too much other than to say thank you very much to my fellow board members. And then as always, thank you, Katie, for keeping us on point. Thank you.
Excellent. Any questions for Katie from anyone else? All right, moving on to agenda item number 7 for discussion and information only. It's my privilege to recognize Professor and Dean at the Roseman University College of Medicine, Dr. Joe Greer, to present on the innovative projects underway at Roseman University. As you can see, based off the agenda today, all of our guest speakers are centered around the healthcare industry. We wanted to have a spotlight on healthcare to showcase all the initiatives that are underway throughout the state that are building and strengthening the healthcare talent pipeline. As Bob Potts from GOAD mentioned at our last executive committee meeting, healthcare occupations are the most in demand throughout the state. So it's imperative that the Governor's Workforce Development Board turn its attention towards fulfilling those needs and spotlighting the organizations that are moving the needle forward for this critical industry. Dr. Greer, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us and making time for us.
Thank you, Chairman Anderson, and for the committee for allowing us to do this. Hi, I'm Joe Greer. Pedro Jose is my name, but they call me Joe. And at Roseman University, which has a 26-year history here, or 5-year history in Las Vegas, it's its commitment to improve the community. Bringing on the medical school, we can try to fulfill the need for physicians. And the way we're going to do that is because the state of Nevada rarely has, actually 1 year only, had more than 400 students from the entire state, regardless of what university they were at, apply to medical school. So we need to fulfill this pathway. And the way we're looking at doing these things is, number one, we want to take care of the most vulnerable in this community, the hourly workers, and make sure that they stayed employed and are doing well. How do I move the, do I just say, okay, hold on, there we go. We have a program called Aspire, which is our pathway program, which, let's see, may I have the next slide, please? Where what we're targeting are first generation college students. And why is that? At the prior institution that we had started, 70% of our students only got into our school and 35% were first generation. Every graduating class we had from 2012 to 2020 had the highest step scores. That's like your bar, and the highest match rate in the entire state of Florida. We're looking for young first generation kids. We're doing this mostly in the historic West Side and on the East Side. And what we do is we go out there for an entire day to get these kids interested in STEAM. That's science, technology, engineering, arts, and medicine. And with a positive association, we bring them out with their parents to explain to them that there is an ROI by going to a health science school. And we don't present to them just for medicine. They can go into dentistry, nursing, pharmacy, all things that we offer here at Roseman University. This offers them career pathways and the knowledge to know what is offered to them and what can go. Next, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. We do everything from farming to technology to coding to mindfulness to nutrition. They spend an entire day there. They learn how to fly drones by coding them in. Kids that have never been exposed to this. And we also work very closely with the UNLV School of Engineering. Now, at the same token, as we saw the pandemic, vulnerable communities, and particularly Hispanic and African American were pretty much ignored during COVID. Next. And so we developed a type of healthcare system called Genesis. Genesis not only offers healthcare with our Roseman Medical Group in primary care, but to identify and mitigate the social determinants, and we've even developed a technology that follows these social determinants on a longitudinal basis. In the state of Florida, when we did this, the State Department of Health gave us a recurring $2.5 million because we were giving them a 1,600% return on investment. By dealing with all these issues with the medical, you prevent hospitalizations and you prolong the workforce and their ability to produce. Next, please. Genesis is an initiative of the Rose College of Medicine. We're here to provide, just as I said, to the underserved households of Clark County. These are hourly employees that work at small businesses that do not have benefits, that we have to understand, as well as our student needs to understand, the realities that exist and the impact in the patient's household. For example, if we're taking care of a young pregnant woman and the person that's making the money in the household gets sick, it affects her and her pregnancy. So all these things need to be looked at to have appropriate outcomes. And we want to prepare the next generation of providers not to identify what diabetes is, but understand that a diabetic and an hourly that's an hourly employee versus the CEO, the approaches have to be different. The chances are the CEO has a chef. Chances are the hourly employee can barely afford the food they need. So we need to come in and support them to make sure they stay healthy and productive in our community. Next, please. And one of the ways we do this is we hire from the community. Our outreach workers, which are in these cars, there are electric cars that were paid for by the city so that our employee does not have to worry about maintenance or gas. And then they're wrapped by local artists with different themes, from mental illness to food inequities to housing. And it makes a big impression in the community. Plus, they know it's theirs. As of right now, we have over 100 households we take care of with an average of about 3.5 person per household. And we have over 80 what we call trusted partners. These are agencies that, as of right now, are sending us patients, but at the same time can offer the services we need for our patients. Next, please. This is the big show we had at the city when we first got the cars. Next, please. We also believe very strongly at Roseman that an academic institution has a social accountability to its community. If there's a problem, we need to address it. Next, please. We have a program called Empowered. Empowered is for opioid and stimulant use disorders expectant and recent mothers. Why is this important? This is the population that's growing. It breaks up families, it imprisons women, and we need to get them with everything from the social support, mental health, and rehabilitation. And the success has been unbelievable. And if you listen to these people, these women talk, it's unbelievable what they go through. What is so beautiful about this program, it was started by a Roseman University graduate, Andrea Peterson. She was a NICU nurse at Dignity, and she started seeing a lot of these babies in the NICU going through withdrawal. She put this program together, and as of right now, we're expanding to the rest of the state and opening up an office in Reno and in Carson City. We're very excited for it. It's a unique program in this country. What happens in Vegas, we want the world to know. Next. And here's some pictures. We actually have a beautiful poster with the handprints of the mothers and the feet prints of the babies. So if any of you have some extra baby stuff that you want to donate, please send it over. These mothers could surely use them. Next. What is the future of Roseman? Next. We're going to be bringing the entire campus over to Summerlin, where we have right now as much acreage as UNLV has, with the exception of their sports team and their property up in North Las Vegas. and bring all the campus here, including expanding our dental school from Utah and bringing it down here. Next. And with that, that's it. Oh, by the way, we did reach candidate status. That's step 2 of 3 to hopefully have our first class in 2025. By the way, bringing in students that are born and raised and first generation students, regardless of where they train, they come home.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. Anybody have any questions for Dr. Joe?
And our football team was undefeated last year.
Well, I can just attest, I'm a trustee at Roseman, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Dr. Joe for the last several years since he arrived in town, and he is one of those hurricanes that Florida is known for, and while he's getting our medical school up and open, he hasn't sat twiddling his thumbs, and all these initiatives you see are going into the community to create an equitable healthcare platform for people who don't have access, as he mentioned. And I think what can't be lost on his comments are those workers that we are seeking to help with career secure futures are the ones who cannot afford, and I don't mean financially, but hourly, cannot afford to leave work to get the healthcare they need. And that's why these initiatives were undertaken by Dr. Joe and his team. And it's a very major advance in our community. So thank you, Dr. Joe.
And the team, and I want to thank you as chairing the board, both of these, and also the entire Roseman community and Las Vegas. I got to tell you, my wife and I love it here. Our first week here, she said she had a choice between good hair or good skin. She chose the hair.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir.
All right.
And thank you for the committee and to the public for listening.
Much appreciated. All right, moving on to agenda item number 8 for discussion and information only. The chair recognizes Chief Mission Services Officer for Goodwill Southern Nevada, Cam Green, to present on the programs available through Goodwill Southern Nevada. Ms. Green?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share today. So as you said, my name is Cam Green and I'm with Goodwill of Southern Nevada. And about 2 years ago, we shifted focus just after COVID to really focusing on healthcare training and development, applying some of the same measures that we had done in terms of building the workforce, but started a new model here for us called what's called Train to Hire. And that program simply means that when we work with participants, we are working with them so that they can train to hire. And so we bring employers to the front end of that conversation and we bring them in. Here's a flyer here that I'll be speaking from, and I'll be speaking about 2 of our main medical programs. So Train to Hire, simply put, is we work with employers on the front end to say, what are the actual skills that these participants need that when they show up to you, resume in hand, application in hand, that they are likely to be hireable, versus going through sort of a generic training sometimes and they come to a job and they say, oh, well, they didn't need this, they didn't need that. So we found great success in one of our first pilot programs where we work with Intermountain doing exactly just that and really whittling down a curriculum with a training partner to give just the things that they needed and just the things that they wanted, you know, in real time and the things they wanted to focus on. And those participants were hired on at 100% because they had the skills that they needed and we worked hand in hand with them. And from that, that is the same model that we use for everything else. We bring employers to the table. We say, what are the skills they need, from the technical to the soft skills. When our participants go through, they go through 3 parts of the program. They start with what's called Thrive, and that is a career and life readiness program. So we work with them on soft skills. We work them on trauma-informed care. We work with them on financial skills and really get them ready to, you know, just be having holistic approach. We work customer service, all of those sort of skills that they're going to need to not only just thrive in the workforce, but once they get a job, to thrive in life. Then they go through an industry boot camp, which is maybe somebody came in, they have an interest in healthcare, but sometimes there is an on-ramp, whether it's an education barrier, whether it's a language barrier, or whether it's you've been out of school for a long time. Going through a medical program is not easy, so we want them to have the most successful opportunity possible. So we give them that industry boot camp, and we've partnered with one of our main partners for one of our healthcare programs, CNA, is called MV Hope. And they spend a week with students and give them hands-on nursing experience. They visit UNLV simulation lab, and they really get an idea. They get to understand some of the pressures and the fun of working in the medical field before they start their actual certification. And there are people who go through that and they decide it's not for them. And that's actually exactly what we want. And then we take them back into our fold and we decide, we talk to them about what other career paths they want. And so the whole purpose of that is to get them as ready as possible and to get them to as aligned as possible so that when they do go through their medical assistant or their certified nursing assistant or phlebotomy, that they're like, this is the career that's right for me. I understand the expectations. I understand the learning expectations, and they have a higher success rate. So, that on-ramp is there just for that. And we've been doing really well with placing candidates about above 80% placement. And we're continuing to bring on new partners in terms of employer partners from this year. We're working with a lot of small clinics in the area, which has been really great, staffing some of those up. And one of our new training partners actually is Vegas PBS. And so that has been a really amazing partnership. One of the things that we really like to focus on in Goodwill is the removal of barriers. People come to us all the time and they say, we want to go to training. Sometimes we say not yet, because again, we want to make sure that they can be successful. So we might have to work with them a little bit longer before they can go into these programs. We still have high interest with people interested in going into healthcare. We still have high need, in the community. And every day we're just working to fill those needs and to make sure candidates are what we call training ready. And then they also have the skills that the employer wants, from the soft skill to the technical. And the other focus with these programs right now is that they're quick. And so we try to do programs and align them that it's what we call like a paycheck within 100 days. So whatever training they're going through is going to be less than 100 days and hopefully in a place job and getting a paycheck in that time period, because we know that a lot of people don't have a lot of time to step away from work. What we're seeing now as we're rounding out year 2 is that some of our participants who have gotten their CNAs are actually talking about going to get their bachelor's. So we do hope that maybe some of them decide to go on into those fields and become physicians and stay locally and go to a local college and go to the Summerlin campus at Roseman and things like that. And so we're going to be following those participants, and we have an alumni program that we're starting. So we would love to be able to tell a story of someone who started with no experience, little skill, maybe some barriers, got their medical assistant or their CNA, worked for a couple years, went to get their bachelor's, and then went on and they stayed in the community. So those are the kind of stories that we want to be a part of in terms of helping participants in the community thrive, and then also helping the workforce thrive. And so we feel like as long as we stay lock and step with what someone needs and what the employer industry needs, that we can really be successful at that. That's kind of my spiel. This is another flyer that goes focus into the CNA. And just as a note, all of our programs are free for participants. They don't pay for supportive services, which could include for medical things, if they need scrubs, if they need, background checks, if they need, other shoes and things like that. And they also have a free career coach that works with them, and their industry certifications are paid for, their classes paid for. And even if they don't pass on the first time something, we will pay for them to take that again. And we often have a one-to-one study coach or small group that they can work with. And some of those people are now going to be coming from our alumni body who went through the program. And we're going to be hiring them on as contractors to work and do small study groups as needed.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Green? Yes, Ken.
Yes, Ms. Green, great presentation. Quick question. I didn't catch it. How long has your program been going? And then would you say you're getting the majority of your clients from being previously unemployed, or are they individuals that are looking to go into a different career field? Just trying to get some background.
Yep. So this program has been going on for about 2 years. We're in year 2, and we actually are expanding at our corporate office. We're expanding our training academy, and then most of the candidates that come to us are severely underemployed, but or unemployed. So not change their careers. We have a few here and there, but they're mostly unemployed or underemployed. And many of them, in this case with the healthcare, they have no healthcare background. We have people who've come, and that's why we do the on-ramp of the boot camp and the, industry training boot camp, so that we can prep them for this field. And again, we have had people who've gone through those step one and step two, and then pivot it to something else. And it's perfect that they pivot with us because we provide services for all kind of workforce. But we really try to make sure this is what they want and it fits and that they're going to be successful, because otherwise it's a waste of time for them and energy and investment. And so we really try to be mindful of that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Pam, some of our local workforce boards, find that, as they are approached by these type of clients, there are many, social service impediments for them that prevented them from having the skills they need to be in the workforce and so forth. Are you also providing wraparound services beyond just the specifics of supporting the career, advancement or, career entry?
Yeah, so we provide a lot of wraparound services, ourselves. We have mental health vouchers, we do some food vouchers, we do the clothing vouchers and different things like that, supportive services to start work or go to training, from bus cars, gas cars, and things like that. Again, all free to participants. But we also partner, and I do want to say that, with a lot of agencies in the community, from CHIP, from, childcare agencies, from Las Vegas Hill, and we try to partner with as many people as possible. And so we say, you can come to us, and it might not be us, but we know someone, right? And so we try to walk alongside them to say, hey, we can make sure we do. The first thing that they do is a barrier assessment. What barriers are you facing? So is it homelessness? Is it, food insecurity? What kind of issues are you having, or what kind of concerns? And we go through that, and we try to get each of those met, whether it's something that we do in-house or we have a referral. We have a pretty good referral system, and get them set up. And then we just walk alongside them. If they're going to training, specifically if they're going to healthcare training, we make sure all those things are handled, and we continue to do the follow-up for that. But yes, people are coming with, lots of barriers. And some we do offer in-house, and otherwise we work with external partners.
So, follow-on question to that is funding. So are you, accessing a different funding stream than other agencies like yours who are providing wraparound services for career or job reentry?
So we have unique funding because we as Goodwill, we're, a retail store, and that's one of our main engines. So we do fund a lot of our programming through our own funds, but we also get government grants. We received 1.5 million from the government to expand this programming in sort of an unrestricted way in terms of wraparound services, supporting training, and also to build out our training academy. We do get local grants. We also apply for philanthropic, or we have philanthropic dollars and things like that. And we also do partnerships. So last year we collaborated and co-funded with EmployMV for about $50,000 in funding. So we prepped the candidate, we did some of the barrier removal, and the candidate was sent over to EmployMV, and they pay for them to go to training. So we are trying to do even more of that, because we may not have the money for something specific, but somebody in the community does. And so that's a big thing that we're trying to get better at. We actually changed all of our forms to meet the measures of EmployMV. That way we remove a barrier for the candidate. If they get transferred over, they don't have to do anything extra because we've already met all the measures for them. And it's typically, we're getting there where it's pretty smooth. But that's something that I would love for us to even get better at, to say, hey, how can we collaborate across these different funding streams? We apply for WIO, we didn't receive it, but to me, that doesn't mean I can't leverage it. And so that's how we, kind of look at it. And we just have to make sure, that we're aligned, we're communicating and collaborating.
Excellent. Yes, Ken.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of quick follow-up questions, which is good. I think what you're doing is going to serve multiple needs. First and foremost, we want to make sure that you and your colleagues, as appropriate, respond when we do our strategic plan stakeholder review. That's going to be very important. In addition to that, I think you've attended some of our barriers and underserved populations meetings, so please continue to do that. And then, because, for example, what you talked about doing with your clients to make sure that they already complete the form in a certain manner, that's one of the things we're looking at. Final question is, are you already familiar with the Disconnected Youth Initiative, and are you part of that effort?
Absolutely and absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
And I'll say one last thing, as just a closeout, and actually this, at the end of this year, so we actually are partnering with Junior Achievement, and we were given space in their new center, in their new Inspiration Center. So we will be hosting a career center there to specifically serve that age population and that youth. So a part of that disconnected worker, those convenings and things like that, will work with the population. I think they're going 14 up to 26. So to be very focused on youth, and there will be a very heavy healthcare focus in terms of the conversation, especially if that's where the interest lies, and we'll be trying to get more youth into that on-ramp and not falling off and just going successfully into, you know, what's next for them.
Yes,
Hi.
Scott.
Speaking of that Inspiration Center, when is that opening?
The Inspiration Center, I believe, is opening. I'm looking at the calendar. I think they're set to open in April or May. And then in terms of our portion for Goodwill Career Services, we'll be late in Q4 because they're trying to do their bigger portion, you know, first, and then get that underway. And then we'll be doing career services towards the end of the year. But I think they're scheduled late April, early May.
Okay, I didn't realize it was that soon. Thank you.
Any other questions for Cam? Seeing none?
It's Andrea Gregg.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Katie, for letting me ask a question. I'm a presenter, but I just want to say, Kim, thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious, we too are in healthcare workforce development. What does the career navigation piece look like beyond placement with your employer partners? And are you working to, I guess, longitudinally track where these individuals are going, and I guess evaluating the retention and or the attrition after they've been hired?
Yes, we are just starting to do that, especially with these healthcare programs. And it makes it a lot easier because our students go through in cohorts, and we do try to work very closely with the employer. And a part of that is the development of our alumni association and program, which we're, you know, slowly launching, but it's going to include everything from, we already have open workshops. So making employers aware of workshops that participants who have graduated can come back to and be a part of. And these are continuing, you know, soft skills or continuing education skills and things like that that they can use in their job. And a part of that is also when we did a soft launch of the Alumni Association last year, is saying, hey, are you aware of the benefits that your employer offers? Are you aware if they have, you know, tuition reimbursement? Because a lot of times you start a job and you get inundated with all this stuff and you need someone to remind you. So that's kind of where we want to be and want to work lock in step with our partners. And we also have started, and we're going to do more quarterly employer meetings with some of our employer partners that we work more closely with, and ask them, how's it working? What are you seeing? What do you need? What kind of follow-ups do you want? And so as we're building out content for our alumni association, it's to support them in their current workforce. But again, we do want to be a part of stories to be able to say this person started as a CNA at Valley Health. We have participants who've been, you know, with Valley for 2 years. So now we are starting to see that really high, you know, lack of attrition. And then also they come back to speak to classes and they celebrate and they talk about the corporation, and people from Valley come from HR and they say, yes, we've gotten people from the program. They're good. They stay, you know, that kind of thing. And so we're trying to tighten that loop up. But that's very much the idea, is if they're going to be in Southern Nevada, we're going to be here in the employer, we should be continuing communications, and it's not you graduate and you're done. We're trying to continue that relationship. So. And
same efforts up in the north. I'm in Reno. Same programming up here?
So we only cover Southern Nevada. And many years ago, I think we had the north. So right now we're only in Southern Nevada, and every Goodwill, just from a Goodwill perspective, is its own territory. And so they could do anything that they feel serves the need of that community. But we can connect if that's something, you know, and I can connect you with the team there.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Any other questions? Cam, thank you very much for your time and comments.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invite.
Our pleasure. All right, moving on to agenda item number 9 for discussion and information only. The chair recognizes the CEO of Las Vegas Heals, Diego Trujillo, to present on the initiatives at Las Vegas Heals. Welcome, Diego.
Thank you, Chair. This is Diego Trujillo, the CEO of Las Vegas Heals. I want to thank everyone for allowing me to share today and being able to share the things that we're going over. I did not know that there was going to be a PowerPoint that we would be able to share. So I'll share a little bit of the executive summary, the information that we've kind of typed up I'd like to give everyone a little bit of a background. I'm born and raised here in Las Vegas. I've gone through CCSD. I've experienced what it is to kind of grow up here and see what opportunities there are. My parents were two Hispanic migrants that met here in the United States, fell in love, and here I came. With that being said, I took over Heels about 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, about a week before lockdown, and quickly kind of got to work on what the challenges were within the community. And of course, workforce was something that kept coming up. Through that, I began to build relationships with different organizations that were trying to make an impact and start to formulate a plan. I started meeting on a weekly basis with George Hempy. He ran a few workforce boards across the country, provided me expertise. And on the flip side of that, my foray in healthcare started from the ground up. I started as a chaplain in hospice. My degree's in theology. I worked that for about a year and then moved into marketing, where I built a group called Vegas Healthcare. We currently have about 13,000 healthcare workers in our main group. We also have a nursing group that has about 5.3 thousand nurses, all mostly, I would say about 98% of them from Southern Nevada. We're very careful in who we let in. As we began to kind of analyze and look over the issues that were being seen in healthcare, I started, sitting in on meetings and listening to certain challenges. And there were a few things, right, that I noticed that were very different as we were talking, how are we going to solve manufacturing, technology, et cetera. One of the conversations that kind of kept coming up was, do these kids know how much money they can make as a nurse, right? And the understanding that healthcare, while we may be able to solve the workforce shortage, that doesn't necessarily improve our outcomes. And if we're going to work on one thing, we might as well work on both. One of the key differences in healthcare is it's a calling-based industry. There's people that join and typically work in healthcare is because they feel a calling for it, very similar to teaching. With that, one of the goals that I had in mind when I set out this strategy was, how do we find the kids that have a calling for healthcare, and how can we empower them and remove barriers so they can enter healthcare and be able to get connected with peers, to be able to feel like a part of something that's larger than themselves and really get entangled. We have a unique issue where CCSD does a great job in their career and technical education, but we also have a giant magnet called hospitality and gaming here where, yes, I could get trained as a medical assistant. I get out of school. I work for about 3 years, making $16 an hour, and then realize, man, I could just go make $400 a night on the strip, right? So how do we retain those employees and really keep them a part of our system? A large part of that is making them feel like part of a community, something that hasn't really been felt here working in healthcare. I saw that even in the discharge of patients that I did on a continual basis. I went from facility to facility, building relationships and trying to get people out and understanding that there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of people in need, and they have no way of finding each other. But one of the key points of my workforce strategy as I was reached out, started working with AHEC, started working with Goodwill, is understanding that there's some very good programs that are funded and working, but the impact is sometimes reduced because it's difficult to be able to get in front of the right audience or bring in the right candidates to be able to get them into that program. I speak quarterly at Desert Rose and speak to all the kids that are going through the CTE program. There's a presentation that I give there on a basis, and that'll kind of bring us to the first point, because there's 3 points that I identified that are very, that haven't been drawn together. And the first one of those being exposure, right? So active engagement with CCSD, and that was one thing I brought up. Are we exposing them to the jobs that exist within healthcare? Growing up here at 15 years old, I can name 20 jobs in a casino. I can name 2 jobs in healthcare, doctor and nurse, and I don't want to do either of those, right? But I knew there was a porter, I knew there was a dealer, I knew there was a bartender, I knew there was a bar back. So how do we expose them to more jobs than just nursing and physicians? What about MDS coordinators inside of skilled nursing facilities? What about jobs in marketing where you can make 6 figures without a college degree, just based on your personality and your ability to be able to connect and to be able to serve population, offering a rewarding career to these younger people? We recorded a video for the NEPRIS education platform that existed at the time. I walked them through, because one of the questions as I started engaging with the different kids in the program, they would mention, oh, well, I want to be a medical assistant. Okay, what kind of office? They would all shrug their shoulders. And it wasn't because it was at 8:30 in the morning, right? They just didn't know. They just knew they wanted to work in a medical office, which is why they entered the program. With that, I realized that it's not just about finding a career or a job for them, but finding the right job. Because if you graduate and you get a job at an oncology clinic, you get excited because you're going to be working in what you studied for, except it's pediatric oncology. And I have a younger brother and sister. And now I'm watching 8-year-olds die over a period of 1.5 years. And I think, man, this is a very depressing job. So I go work at a wound care clinic. Okay, we're going to be putting Band-Aids on cuts, right? except I didn't understand that wounds can sometimes go, down to the bone, and I could smell them from 75 feet away. You know what? Maybe this isn't the career for me. I'm just going to go make $400 a night. I just turned 21. I could go work on the strip. So how do we retain these people and make sure that they're aware of the different careers? I developed a program, kind of a syllabus that healthcare professionals would be able to tailor their own stories to and explain to kids what a career in healthcare can look like. That started from 911 dispatch all the way to transport to the hospital, what the job and the role of the hospital is, skilled nursing, post-acute, all these ancillary services, and how their career path may fit into all of those. Maybe I graduate as a pharmacy tech and I don't want to work in retail pharmacy, but there is non-retail pharmacy. I can work in a warehouse packing bubble packs or delivering medications, and I don't have to deal with the general public or drug seekers on a daily basis. So for us, it's about exposing them to the career, and they can understand what that ecosystem looks like to help give them the best ability to succeed within that. This idea came along 3 years ago, talking with Craig Brockett, who was at CCSD back then. They were having trouble connecting industry with the classrooms. I made a call to my Vegas healthcare community and said, hey, are there healthcare professionals that would be willing to speak to classrooms? And immediately got 80 people from a variety of backgrounds that said, yeah, I would be willing to participate. I'd be interested in talking to the high school students and being able to share my story. And for me in particular, and one of the reasons that I shared it, it's a very non-traditional, non-linear story. I got the second worst degree that you can get, which is theology, right? And then somehow I ended up as a healthcare CEO. And so explaining the choices and how I got there, and then the opportunities that I took advantage of to get where I was, and being able to motivate them. So first and foremost, the connection with CCSD. Since then, there are a few things that we've been trying to build out and roll out, bringing the education to the schools. I've been working with a medical society in a high school of all kids that wanted to become doctors, that wrote in and said, hey, we're trying to interview doctors because we all want to become physicians, but it's hard for us to find a doctor to take a hospital tour. When you reach out to the hospital, sometimes they would get the answer, well, you know what, it's very busy. It'd be too difficult to coordinate. Sorry, we can't help you. And so I realized that these kids that wanted to enter into healthcare were hitting a wall in that they didn't have the resources. Industry needs to step in, and that's what Las Vegas Heals has looked to do. That's what I have personally done, and my team has looked to accommodate, right? Reaching out to the Nevada Hospital Association and the different areas that have that, and being able to get 2 hospital tours set up, reading out to Toro that said, yeah, they can come in and play in our sim lab, get to know what medical school would look like, be able to connect with residents and talk with physicians. So really removing the barriers for the kids that do want to come into healthcare. The other one that's very interesting is, while there are programs like the CTE program, typically they are for kids that have a higher GPA, and it's fantastic that kids with a 4.0 GPA want to enter into high school. But what about the 2.0 students? They also need careers, and they also need, so where do they fit in within the puzzle? Maybe they don't want to be physicians, but looking for natural career paths that we could show them, whether that be in nuclear medicine, whether that be in direct patient care as nursing, helping to build out those career paths, and then leaning on partners. Goodwill did a great job when I sat down with Cam, and I was like, it'd be great if there was someone that could walk these kids through their careers. And she said, hey, we already have funding for these career counselors. So I brought her and said, hey, can you stick to these kids that can help to walk them, as they go through the different steps, and help guide them through a logical progression within their career. So really looking to maximize what resources already exist, looking to convene them, and then looking to convene allied health. If we sit down to fix healthcare on the workforce side, the first question, the 2 people that we interview are the 2 largest hospital systems, and we're asking their HR departments. The answer that you're going to get is very different of what the needs are than if you ask the case management. I'll give you an example of that. Towards the tail end of COVID, there was a huge shortage in PCA. Even right now in the governor's office, Aging and Disability, they're looking how they can get more personal care attendants. That was something that we knew in the community because I have a lot of friends and relationships that work in discharging patients. They could not discharge patients from the hospital because there was no one that could serve that population. Even though Medicaid was reimbursing, they couldn't find people that would be willing to work. And so really making that connection and showing the need on the side of the discharge, as opposed to just solely from the side of the HR and what the hospital needs are. So all of those things on the exposure sides are things that we took, that we kind of went into. The second part that is very important is bringing together the different HR departments, right? So it's the partnerships of the human resources and helping them understand that we need to walk people through these career paths. I kind of ran a little bit of a pilot. I brought together, from entry level, a PCA company, home health, hospice. I brought a post-acute hospital. I brought a long-term acute care hospital and a hospital system, and brought them all into the same room and kind of started asking them, right? This is what a career path. If you work for 8 months, there's already grants that exist that you can take this PCA certification and get to work right away. While after you perform a certain amount of time, to be able to apply for another grant that will give you that CNA licensing. With that CNA licensing, you no longer need to work at that agency. You need to be handed off. So having HR really take a different approach to how they lead the next generation. Even during that conversation, as we were talking of people moving up acuity levels or moving along their career path, one of the people from one of the hospitals said, yeah, but why would I want to hand off a good employee? And I told them, well, that's exactly the problem and the attitude that we have. They're not your employee, and they know that. That's why they're leaving to another job for 50 cents. I have a nursing group, and I have a very interesting dynamic is that I have posts where a nurse will say, hey, I'm just burnt out. I've been working for 6 years in the hospitals. I'm ready to just leave this industry. I see these posts on a weekly basis, which is very alarming to me because we're not producing enough nurses. And in addition to that, not only are we not producing enough nurses, we're burning out the nurses that are. It's amazing to see the peer-to-peer mentorship when nurses jump in and say, hey, have you thought of maybe leaving the hospital and working home health or hospice where you can manage your time? What I termed as respite jobs, a job that will give you a little bit of rest from that caregiver burnout and allow you to recharge to be able to continue in that career field. Speaking to a banking executive here, as I was mentioning this issue, she said, yeah, you're exactly right. That's what happened to me as a nurse. That's why I got out of nursing. That's why I work at a bank now. And so how do we retain these people without human resources having the knowledge, the skills, and the support to be able to lead a new generation of workers that are now entering the workforce? In addition to that, we see the coordination in my group. I have some people that will post, hey, I'm a new grad nurse here. I would love to work in the NICU. They will very quickly have 50 different people comment and say, okay, go take a contract at this hospital system. It's a garbage contract, but just do your 2 years, get out of there. Go work at this other hospital system. They pay you better until you specialize on the floor. Then go to this third hospital system. They pay the most in the valley. So on one side, the workforce is very, very coordinated on how to make the most amount of money. I'm not seeing that level of coordination on how we're going to bring more nurses and realistically make that happen. This is where a convener is very, very important, right? When you look at a workforce system, you're always going to need the post-secondary educators. You're going to need the employers, and you're going to need the convener that's kind of bringing everyone together. I've been in the unique position that I founded this organization, Vegas Healthcare, that has these 18,000 healthcare workers. So I don't just need to take a poll or a survey of the employer. I can tap right into the employees and see what the sentiment and the feeling is within the employee workforce. So not only have I brought together the post-secondary education and also been able to bring the industry together, I'm also able to touch directly with the employees, which brings me to my third point, which is the community. That sense of feeling like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. This is going to be very key to retention. And as I mentioned in my example earlier, right, the ability to have other people that are in your career or maybe more advanced along your career. You could see these posts, and any of you are free to join. The group is called Vegas Healthcare on Facebook, and you could see on a regular basis how they will go seek advice from other peers and say, hey, I'm looking for this shift, and watching all of the other nurses say, I've been a nurse for 37 years. This is what I would do in your position, to help them navigate. It adds to cohesiveness, and again, helps them feel like a part of something larger than themselves. And I'm not just talking about a hospital system or a company, but as a healthcare worker in general. Something that was exacerbated during COVID because, they felt proud to be a healthcare worker until they needed childcare, and they were told by their daycare, hey, your child is high risk because you work in a hospital. We can't have your kid here anymore, which were things we were seeing, at least on the childcare front. With that, we want to build natural pathways, right, and career paths. I've had different companies. There's a staffing agency that staffs over 600 radiology techs and different nuclear medicine positions throughout the valley. They said, we'll hand over the entire pipeline of how they can start and how they can get to each marker. showing them natural pathways, whether that be PCA to CNA to LPN to BSN, or maybe they want to work as a caregiver inside of an assisted living facility, which is also needed, and make a shift from there to med tech and possibly go into pharmacy tech. So showing them the natural barriers. These are all steps that we've taken. There are plans that we've had. We've had zero funding, so I've been having to make this work with the partners that I've had. One of those has been with our medical career expos, which was different than every other job fair that existed. That sometimes we would see, you know, a nurse is not looking for a job at a station casino. They know that they're in demand and they know that they don't need to do that. So really targeting just the healthcare sector. And we started doing it. We hosted a job fair before I realized, hey, why don't we bring together the post-secondary education so that they can talk about the different educational programs? So as candidates are coming and looking for jobs, maybe there's a potential. And with that, we ended putting together, we had a successful medical career expo. That was the first one that we wanted to execute how we wanted. We were working with CCSD. They had reserved 500 seats on buses to be able to bus the students in. The goal would be to have, as they walked in, to be able to have community partners like Goodwill was in attendance. They supported us by having their career counselors that could talk to the kids right away and be able to talk to them about what they have to offer, and how they can counsel them through their careers. Right after that, we had Employee NV that could talk about the grants that exist for their education. Right in the next part of the hall, we had all of the, we had the Jobtimize. So Vegas PBS came in and said, hey, we have this portal to do skills assessments and to be able to help you find the right career, not just any job in healthcare, but the right job in healthcare. After that, we had all of the post-secondary educators to talk about their programs, and then the employers. We were aiming to get around 300 to 400 kids at that event. We ended up with 900 kids from high schools all at this event. It was an extreme success, even though CCSD was a little stressed out because they didn't think that, they weren't planning on principals just getting their own buses to bus their kids in. But it really demonstrated how important it is for us as industry to step in and really support the school district. There's only so much that they can do. And for us, it's very, very important to secure funding to be able to get a liaison that can help with what CCSD's needs are, to be able to bring the people from industry over. In the end, we had the 900 juniors and seniors that had come from CCSD. We also had 5 post-secondary education systems in attendance. We had 35 employers in attendance that were talking about the careers to all the kids. Employee NV was there to talk about the grants. We had AHEC there talking about their ambassadors program. And AHEC has worked key with us in being able to penetrate the schools with these medical societies that we're working on building at Green Valley and now at Cheyenne High School as they're duplicating. We had Goodwill career counselors there to help counsel the kids, and really they're the glue that kind of walk them through that career pathway. And then Vegas PBS there. For us, the most important part is to increase the impact of every single one of these organizations. Goodwill is doing an amazing job. AHEC is doing an amazing job. One of the struggles sometimes they voice is we can't find candidates for these programs. We have funding and we have the training programs. It's hard for us to reach out. And what I have seen, the gap that has existed, is how can HEAL step in and really connect that bridge along with the disconnected youth as well. Great. How do we get them in and how do we get them interested? And that's only going to happen if we as an industry have the ability to connect directly and help to remove as many barriers as possible. So I want to give an opportunity for any questions or anyone that may want to comment.
Outstanding presentation, Mr. Trujillo.
Thank
Dan,
you.
did you have a question?
Yes, I do. I echo what Chair Anderson just said, outstanding, and I've been aware of your agency. Very 2 quick questions. One is macro, one is micro. The macro question is, do you have a feel and are you tracking the total vacancies within Southern Nevada in terms of like how many nursing, what nursing shortage? Yeah, let me stop there. You're picking up on what I'm asking.
So the data that we get is Dr. Packham at UNR. He jumped on board. UNR shipped down 800 of their healthcare manuals that we could hand out to the kids. So we were handing them out like candy to every kid. I was walking through the hall asking them if they had. That manual goes over how many vacancies there are, what the projections are. In other words, in the future, how many people are going to be needed, and how short we are on those trainings, the salary, the education, and an explanation of the job. So while we're not tracking it, Dr. Packham does a good job of tracking that information.
Okay, and then very quickly, Las Vegas Hills, are you only covering the Southern Nevada region, or do you have a similar entity up in Northern Nevada? The reason why I'm asking is because our charter is statewide, and then when we have great examples like what you're doing and some of the collaboration, we're trying to scale it and get it to operate statewide.
So my vision this year was to expand in Northern Nevada. Southern Nevada Medical Industry Coalition, which is also known as HEALS, started in Southern Nevada. I have a Reno healthcare group that's already started. I don't have any funding to move north, but as I engaged in one of the PCA meetings with PCA employers, that's when Aging and Disability stepped in. Cheyenne from Aging and Disability said, hey, there's some funding, but it has to go statewide. The plan that I've built is not only executable statewide, I just haven't had funding. It's literally me and one other person working at Las Vegas Heals. But it is absolutely deployable in Northern Nevada. And in addition to that, it's not just specific to healthcare. I had met with Senator Hammond, or Scott Hammond now, right? A while back when we first started talking, and one of his first questions was, can you do this in trades? It's absolutely duplicatable. I really wanted to build a plan that wasn't just cohesive for healthcare, but that could also be duplicated. I'm in a very unique position in the fact that no other workforce across the country has ever had a grassroots community group to support what is happening on the workforce side. I think I'm in a unique position to be able to do something very different. So we're very excited to push towards Northern Nevada. There is not a problem with that, and it is scalable, especially with partners that are already very heavy in Northern Nevada, like AHEC, the Nevada Hospital Association. And from most of what I'm hearing, Northern Nevada is much more organized than Southern Nevada. So I won't get as many gray hairs working up there, hopefully deploying it.
Okay, and pardon me, Chair, just a little bit more. Yeah, that's great to hear that it's also agnostic to the sector, because I think there's the ability to integrate what you're doing at a minimum for the industries of focus that we want to diversify our economy. My last question is, for the 900 students that you contacted, and this is similar to the question that was asked of Cam from Goodwill, is there an appropriate way through your navigators or some other means to make sure we don't, quote unquote, lose those 900 students, but more importantly, we can longitudinally figure out how many of them stay with the program, graduate, 2-3 years from now, they're helping us bolster our healthcare system?
So right now, due to our size, I have no way to track that. Again, because it's just me and my assistant. That is something that Dr. Pearson brought up at CSN, is to track, right, is how many of these kids are actually sticking to it. With CCSD, they have a unique challenge, and they said after they graduate, we can't follow them anymore. So they're kind of stuck in a place where they can't continue to track them. I have an idea by having a landing page, because CCSD can't throw out social media, right? They can't recommend it to students. So I have a landing page that I've created on vegashealthcare.com for job seekers that will have the Employee MV job search function. It has the Jobtimize portal from PBS. It has the AHEC information for those that want to pursue more education. And our goal is to have, through the Contact Me, to be able to get some information so that we can track them. But really, looking into the future as things are, we would have to rely on like Goodwill. So my goal would be, out of the 900 students that showed up, that they would have touched and engaged with the career counselors, so that we can wrap them up in the web and basically track where they are in 5 years. In other words, are we training 900 kids in CCSD and 850 of them are ending up in gaming and hospitality, or are we being effective and maintaining them?
Any other questions for Diego? Yes, Scott.
Thanks, Diego. As always, you do a great job, which is why I spend a lot of time with you and getting a lot of information from you. And I think I've probably seen a lot of what you presented, and you've handed me a lot of information. I think today was the first time I've heard, though, about the packet the packet that you put together, that UNR helped you put together. I was wondering if you might be able to share that with our committee at some point. Send it to us.
Yeah, it's very scary, but I'll send it to Katie and she can distribute it. I've gone over it with the neighborhood housing services. We're looking at programs to do like housing for learners, So maybe remove that barrier for people that can't go to school because they can't afford to pay rent and also study, et cetera. So we have ideas on that, and the numbers are really scary when you start analyzing.
Yeah, and anything with that, because you're also talking about the workforce shortage in the, certain jobs that are short in the industry itself. And that's we'd like to see that as well.
Absolutely. I'll send it over to Katie, and then it's broken down by county, so you can look at it.
Okay, great. And I know we're still working on a bunch of other projects together. So again, great presentation today. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you guys very much for hearing me out, and I hope to be able to continue doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. We much appreciate it. All right, moving on to agenda item number 10 for discussion and information only. I recognize CEO of High Sierra Area Health Education Center, Andrea Gregg, to present on the programs available at High Sierra. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good to see you, Diego. I'm with my people. I get so excited. And just really grateful to be here. Katie, thank you for all of your help. It's a real pleasure to be here today. And really, I'll be the last presenter, but I think I'm glad I structured my presentation the way that I did. So I think what we'll do to start, I'm really going to set the table and really start with some of the data and then dive into an overview of our organization and the programs that we are administering that do grow the number of healthcare professionals in Nevada. Next slide. So really, to kick things off, as we're all aiming to ensure access to care, we're also evaluating what our current population health issues are. This slide here is really going to just give you a snapshot as to what Nevada is experiencing from the perspectives of expanding healthcare coverage, not only dealing with high costs of care, even for the insured, but ensuring access to care, and what does that supply versus demand actually look like. Balanced spending, figuring out how to control healthcare costs, especially within programs like Medicaid, as well as addressing some of the high prices of prescriptions and making those costs more transparent and accessible. We are also very aware that we are in a mental health crisis, so tackling the many challenges related to mental and behavioral health issues affecting Nevadans is a very current and relevant issue. And then finally, the post-pandemic health system. So really going back to normal, as well as the impact to the providers and the facilities, considering the unwinding and how the going back to normal may impact the policies and the systems changes, considering our current health infrastructure and the lack of professionals that we have to already. So anyway, next slide. Oh, sorry, I'm driving with you, Katie. So the healthcare workforce demand and supply in Nevada, I know that I'm likely speaking to many of you who are already well aware of this, but I think it's really crucial to identify the demand versus the supply. Here in Nevada, our population growth, as well as aging and diversification, in addition to gains in public and private insurance, economic growth and diversification. I just went to Vegas for the first time in a while, and I'm always amazed at the expansion down in Southern Nevada, but also, the current and emerging population health needs. So as we're experiencing this major influx of population, we're all very acutely aware that we don't currently have the right supply of the healthcare workforce that is needed in order to meet those persistent and ever-evolving and expanding changes. So the supply of the current Nevada workforce, we know that we have persistent workforce shortages in medicine, nursing, behavioral health, public health, and many other professions. We actually have steady growth of licensed health professionals, yet we're barely treading water in our per capita growth of licensees in many of our professions. And then finally, we have a diversity mismatch between providers and our populations, in addition to a geographic male distribution of health professionals. Next slide. This slide is going to provide some information on HPSA. HPSA are health professional shortage areas. These scores are developed for use by the National Health Service Corps, and they're really aimed to determine priorities for the assignment of clinicians. And the scores range from 1 to 25 in primary and mental health, 1 to 26 for dental, and basically the higher the score, the greater the priority. So with the publication you were just speaking about through Dr. John Packham's office, the AHECs are actually underneath the umbrella of the Office of Statewide Initiatives. So we work to support their efforts in curating a lot of the data that our state does have access to as it pertains to the current demand and what does it take to be average and what some of those projections look like for Nevada. For the interest of time, today I just wanted to focus on 3 areas that are very pertinent to our current work here at High Sierra AHEC. And those include primary, dental, and mental health care. And what always strikes me, and I've been with High Sierra AHEC for 15 years, working really closely with Packham and a couple of other folks around the state, but 1.95 million Nevadans reside in a primary care HPSA area. That's 57.6% of our entire state's population, and that does include 11 of all 14 rural and frontier areas. Dental health is just as grim, 2.2 million Nevadans, which is 70% of the state's population, 12 single county dental HPSAs in Nevada, including 11, again, of those rural 14. And then finally, mental health workforce shortages. So 2.8 million residing in a mental HPSA, which is 74.1% of the state's population. And then notably on this slide too, 15 of our single county mental HPSAs in Nevada include all of our 14 rural and frontier counties. Finally, the nursing there on the bottom right pocket, what does it take to be average? This data is really going to give you a snapshot of the population to provider ratios and where Nevada currently stands as far as what we would need in addition to what we already have in order to meet those national ratios. So when you hear the other folks who are doing the great work for your CNAs or thinking about CNAs to LPN and RN pipelines, there is a reason why I think many of us who are working in this space tend to focus on these disciplines in particular, because we have a lot of work to do in order to provide higher accessibility to quality healthcare in Nevada. Next slide. Thank you. This slide here is going to dive a little bit deeper into the available data that happy to share at the end of the presentation with you, Katie, but through our efforts at the Nevada Health Workforce Research Center, we have 3 very helpful publications that come out of Dr. John Packham's office. The first one is online, Nevada Instant Atlas. This is going to be your county level health database, which is really going to offer a very intuitive interactive option, especially if you're looking to discover disparities between social groups and health behaviors. The one in the middle is the hottest off the press. This is the January 2023 Rural and Frontier Data Book. And this is a very clear and concise, again, county level overview, but really details covering the resident population with the economy and many other, facets within the healthcare delivery ecosystem in rural and frontier Nevada specifically. The third one here is the Healthcare Careers Manual that Diego mentioned. This is the newest publication, hot off the press, and I will make sure that each of you have access to this most current version. And really what this does, in my time here, we've printed, I'd say about 30 to 40,000 of these. We update them biannually. And what they're going to do is include roughly over 70 healthcare occupations. And what we love about this publication is it's written and intended for a 4th to 5th grade reading level. But where we've seen this publication evolve is through the use of other social service providers for dislocated workers and perhaps even adults seeking career change. So again, it's going to give you a detailed inventory of the educational and degree programs in Nevada. And again, it's going to project and share how many do we currently have versus how many we project to need in the future based upon some of those other subsets of data that would allow us to move into the space of meeting the national standard. Next slide. So I wanted to just, again, set the table with some additional data. I think the data that you just saw really is the driving factor behind our work here at the Nevada AHEC program. We have been doing this work for 40 years in the state of Nevada. The first grant came to Nevada in 1984, and we are a part of a national AHEC organization. So around the country, there's over 320 AHEC centers and/or program offices. And really, our main bailiwick is to address the state's healthcare workforce shortages through recruiting, training, and retaining health professionals who are specifically committed to increasing access to primary care and now behavioral health and public health infrastructure, specifically for underserved urban and rural communities. So we aim to connect students to careers. We aim to connect those professionals to communities, which then ultimately connects communities to better health. And since the pandemic, and even before, I mean, we know that we had our needs well before COVID. I think COVID just shed light on the work that it is that we are doing, and we are just so acutely aware that healthcare workforce development really does, equal economic development and diversification. So here at High Sierra AHEC, we are extremely intentional of working cross-sectorally, if you will, and collaboratively with every single agency that we can that really encompasses this idea of the overall healthcare workforce ecosystem. AHEC is a bridge and a convener between the academic partners and the employers. So we tend to facilitate a lot of our work to ensure that everything we're executing out of our office is, very comprehensive and all-encompassing and includes all of those various stakeholders. Next slide. And the vision at AHEC, so really we aim to forge a brighter and healthier future. We want to empower students, very similar to a lot of the colleagues on the line today. Our main focus, again, is reaching to students who are underrepresented, Title I, first gen, students of color, rural, et cetera. And what we do is we give them an offering of a very comprehensive pathway program that starts as early as 5th grade. And then that program cultivates all the way through to our AHEC Scholars Program, which are students in their graduate or doctorate level program. Our vision is quite clear here at High Sierra AHEC. We want to empower the next generation. We truly believe in growing our own. I think I've said in many, many conversations, and we all want the right here, right now fix, but we know that physicians and social workers and speech pathologists and whatever it may be, they don't grow on trees. We need to do an upstream approach, and we need to be very tactical on how we make longer term investments to support the longer term goals that our state has. We always emphasize mentorship and skill development in every program that we offer. And then, of course, health equity and diversity is very huge for our initiatives too. We always aim to not only inspire these young students, but also to be really, really intentional that the workforce we're aiming to develop for the future of our state is really representative of the communities that we serve, because we're well aware that when that happens, to see it to believe it, or the exchange of, we're aligning and we're all the same, really does represent and support culturally aware practices, and it ensures equitable and empathetic care for all Nevadans. And then finally, again, we like to forge strong partnerships and collaboration. We can't do what we do without the strength of the partnerships that we have. Next slide. So I could probably talk for hours about the programs that we offer, but in the interest of time, I did my best to put them on one slide. Happy to speak offline if any of these are of particular interest. But again, we start as early as 5th grade. We do that through camps and hands-on experiential programs with several partners across Northern Nevada. And then as you take that more downstream, the programs you're going to see to the left of your screen, Project Prevent and Project Roar, these are specific to K through 12. These are really the precursor, or what we like to call our prerequisite programming for students who have an identified interest in healthcare. And through this program at this point, we are including all of our various competencies. So behavioral health integration, praxis transformation, interprofessional education, meaning we're working in teams and we're working collaboratively for the greater good of the patient care. Those are all the things we are talking about at this level with these students. They are engaging back within their communities We are connecting them with employers so that they can have opportunities for hands-on and outside of their academic setting experiential learning opportunities. And then further down the path there, we have our certification programs. We are, as of 2 years now, a community health worker training provider in the state. We work with the Nevada State Certification Board, and we're the first in the state that has taken this community health worker training program to the high schools, working with pretty much seniors in high school who have an interest in, again, healthcare, but doing the wraparound offering of social services and, again, behavioral health integration is also exposing them to the overall system of healthcare. So they're getting the certification as a community health worker, and then they're continuing on through our pathway programs and or being connected directly with employers to hire, or they're taking that foundational knowledge and those skill building opportunities through that certification, and then further propelling themselves either through higher education or to other points of entry for entry-level healthcare careers. The next one is our mentorship and our student ambassador program. This is for undergrads, and this is, it's a really great program. It's for students by students. It's peer mentorship driven. They do special events each year. They have a pre-professional healthcare summit. They give back to the community through volunteerism and civic engagement, and I am very happy to announce that we will be moving into a contract community health alliance, offering these students with a preceptorship opportunity during their undergrad time throughout this program. And then last but not least is the AHEC Scholars Program. Again, this is for our graduate level students who are well on the trajectory and getting close to finish their identified degree program. They spend 2 years with our AHEC. They spend, I think, about 80 hours of didactic training in addition to 80 hours of experiential. I've been here for 15 years. I can tell you that I've seen a 5th grade camper become a medical student. I have seen a Project Prevent participant become a college advisor, helping students navigate their own pathways as they advance forward to meet their academic and professional goals. And then down on the bottom there, there's a testimony of one of our participants. Next slide. I want to dive a little bit deeper into the Scholars Program. This one's near and dear because it's on the tail end of our pathway program. So what that means for this group here or the employers where you're engaging is that these individuals are highly skilled, highly trained, employable assets for any employer partner that would like to continue to work with the Nevada AHEC program. They make a substantial impact on the community. They are practicing while participating with us, and then while they're receiving clinical and non-clinical experiences within the competencies listed there on that slide, you'll also see the eligibility of the folks that we aim to recruit within our various cohorts. This is a federally mandated program that comes from HRSA, and we have been in operations now for 5.5 years on the Scholars Program. Next slide. So that's kind of the big snapshot of the programs, and then I wanted to provide you with some data as far as our last fiscal year to include some projections to close this current fiscal year. Again, I didn't include the 5th grade cohorts, but I did want to go back to K through 12 just again for further emphasis on the importance of upstream. We have had the opportunity to engage with 227 Project Prevent and 247 Project Roar students. We've trained 93 community health workers, 71% of which, have actually completed their Nevada certification through the Nevada Certification Board. We've received word as of just yesterday that 4 of those individuals have been placed with our employer partners. And then further down the line, 729 student ambassadors these are their volunteer hours over the course of the last 2 academic semesters. And then we've also had the success in completing 45 AHEC scholars through that 2-year high-level commitment. 21 patients have been reached through their efforts on their rural health outreach clinics. 35% of them have gone on to pursue higher education, and 20% of them are currently involved in working within rural communities. And then down at the bottom of the slide there is just some nice data of our current last year and this current year's efforts on, showing that 91% of our K through 12 participants have a continued interest in higher education after the completion of our program. 67% of them are representing underserved and underrepresented Title I and/or rural. 76% have agreed that our program has motivated them to pursue a career in healthcare. And then finally, 39% of our AHEC Scholars alumni are currently employed and working in rural areas and/or high volume needs hospitals within Nevada, and that's as of 2023. Next slide. So just some further emphasis on growing our own. Again, this is so important to our work. It took many years to curate the programs that you see before you today, and we do believe in starting early. The research will show that young minds as early as 5th to 6th grade are starting to think about what they want to do, and so long as you can provide them with the comprehensive wraparound services and the opportunities for growth and advancement, to include the mentorship element of those programs, they can be and will be successful. I started in 2009. This is Jessica. She was one of my first students in our Project Prevent programming. She was an amazing individual who was facing a lot of adversity. She was a teen mom by the time she was a junior in high school. She was living in and out of hotels with her mom and her 4 siblings, and I used to give her rides to programming, and we stayed very closely connected. And she has actually completed every single one of our programs throughout the continuum of our pathway, and now is very successfully leading change as the Director of Resident Care at 5 Star Senior Living, with very notable and measurable retention and staff morale under her leadership, which is extremely exciting. Next slide. Moving forward, where AHEC would like to go, these are our 12-month priorities. We're going to continue to diversify our student cohorts. We know that we need to be intentional with our recruitment so that the recruitment mirrors the state's workforce needs, not only to include discipline, but also geography, as well as focusing on proper representation of the communities which we aim to serve. We are going to do that through enhanced interprofessional education, continuing to build out opportunities for mentorship and leadership development, and then ideally really expanding our opportunity to work with employers so that we as developers of these programs have the opportunity to develop based upon direct need direct need that's been identified within those employer partnerships. Because at the end of the day, we really want to enhance our ability to upskill and uptrain these individuals so that when they leave this particular pathway and they become employable at the point of the completion of whichever discipline they are currently pursuing, that they are opportunities for the employers, and it could be a direct hire or an opportunity for talent acquisition for someone who's highly skilled and highly trained. We also aim to do some program expansion. We will hopefully be embarking on the state's first community health worker apprenticeship program. AB 37 was a very large success for us during this last legislative session. It is going to create Be Here Nevada, which is the state's first behavioral health workforce development center operating out of UNLV. Locking arms with them to advance the pathway programs that I've shared today to really take a deeper dive specifically for behavioral health. We'd love to collaborate more with this board, as well as any other employers that you think would benefit from our programs. Finally, we just received a grant that's going to allow us to offer tuition reimbursement for the students participating in our pathway programs. So I will have the great pleasure of figuring out how we sustain that momentum. It is an ARPA-funded initiative. It will term as the funding cliff is coming, but we are dead set on finding ways to make that a reality for the students that we're serving and to do what we can to eliminate any of those barriers. And then finally, if you're not aware of the state, we've worked with my colleague Megan Komlossi at the Larson Institute. Amongst many others, we have developed a Nevada Healthcare Workforce Pipeline and Development Work Group. This work group aims to improve, grow, and diversify our public health, behavioral health, and primary care workforce ecosystem. We've been meeting since November 2021, and throughout those efforts have developed workforce asset maps as well as actionable plans that each one of those subcommittees are currently driving and currently evolving, and in response to, you know, just the ever evolving of the state's needs. So if there's any interest, we're constantly looking for other experts and folks interested in this work to join us. Very collaborative, and it's been a whole lot of fun. So we're going to figure out how to keep that going. Next slide. I think this is the last one. So I just wanted to share here too, our policy alignment with the current 3-year plan policy matrix that was just released out of the governor's office. We're all well aware education and workforce is the buzz topic everywhere we go. And we're really excited that, you know, what's been identified in this plan is the importance of preparing students for college and career paths, as well as establishing clearly defined pathways from education to workforce. Diego, I think you said it best. I think one of our biggest challenges through AHEC is we've got the pathway programs, we've got the students, but now we need to bridge our own gap and really make sure that we have the right employer partners working with us and you know, open and receptive to either continuing to eliminate barriers by giving those students access to opportunities, or working directly with them again to give them placement opportunities and help them manage and track their retention, ideally, for those participants. And then I think that is the last slide, or next slide. This is me, if you'd like to chat further. And that's all I got.
Andrea, thank you. Who has questions?
I do. But definitely, Andrea, I'm going to take you up on your offer to talk offline, or real quick, have you interacted with, forgive me for being somewhat professionally selfish, but I was the president for the Urban Chamber of Commerce for almost 9 years. We actually had a healthcare roundtable. I was just curious if you've interacted with the healthcare roundtable, and I'm going with it somewhere once I get your response.
Yes, Ken, thank you for the question. And absolutely, yes. And for me, it's the Reno Sparks Chamber. We're located in Reno, and I do participate. They have a workforce consortium where I've been actively engaged.
Okay, so I know the Urban Chamber has a healthcare roundtable, because I was going to ask in your slides, the statistics you show, are those for statewide? Because specifically, for example, the camps you mentioned for the 5th graders, are those only offered up north, or do you have a colleague that offers those camps in the South?
So well, I shouldn't say everything, because the Nevada AHEC program is growing, which is very exciting. The camps are here in the north. We have yet to have the opportunity to expand them down south. There is a Desert Meadows AHEC, and I can't believe I forgot to mention this because it was on my note to do so. But Desert Meadows is the one Diego is currently working with, and they reside in Las Vegas. And then we also have a Frontier AHEC located in Elko. Both of those centers have currently developed and established their ambassador program, and they also have the scholars program. And then Las Vegas actually just implemented for the first time this last academic semester the Project Prevent curriculum. So that's kind of one of my big tasks, is really helping the Nevada AHEC program expand and support their capacity building so that we can have a more unified, cohesive way in which we're operating as a statewide network and ensure we're servicing more students and certainly garnering more support and pushing more resources down south, specifically to Clark County, where we know there's a significant need.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say this and then I'll stop, because, you know, from my perspective, again, we're chartered to come up with statewide ideas that are scalable. At the same time, what I want to assure you is, to be fair to you, Diego, and others, Cam, it's also our responsibility, and I'll probably come back to this in new business, to help identify where the gaps are and to help identify resources to support you all individually and collectively. And I'll stop there, but outstanding presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Agreed. Any other questions for Andrea? Andrea, thank you very much for that presentation. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we got a masterclass today in this meeting. All right. So let's see. We are moving on to agenda item number 11 for discussion and information only. The chair would like to see if there is any new business from the executive committee members. So I'll start with Mr. Evans.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. From my perspective, outstanding presentations individually as well as collectively. I guess what I'm interested in as far as next business is on the supply side, I'm sorry, on the demand side, figuring out, and I think Andrea's slide touched to this, and then Diego may have some statistics as well. On the supply side, I'm interested in where the vacancies are, if we know about them, if we're including them in our employee NV system, or if there's a way, as a part of the improving the 8% business participation, what do we need to do to address that? And then on the supply side, again, what I'm interested in is figuring out what are the resources we need to come up with. I'm not saying we're going to be able to do it overnight, but what are the resources we need to come up with statewide in order to support these things that are going on? I think many people know. If you don't, I don't mind mentioning it on the record because I've said it publicly. I myself have a health challenge right now, and real or perceived, we need to bolster our healthcare systems. So perception at a minimum is not you need to leave the state to get certain types of care. And what I'm heartened by is what I saw here today. A lot of people, a lot of agencies doing some good work, but my concern is, again, us doing what we need to do as far as next steps to A, identify what's needed, and B, get the resources to make it happen so people don't feel like they have to leave the state in order to get good health care. And I'll stop there.
Excellent points, Ken. Any other comments? Well, I think this committee and our board in general has recognized that effective workforce development starts with the fundamentals, and that's education and healthcare and all the impediments that prevent people from being productive participants in the economy in general. And all of these initiatives we heard today are in fact doing just that. And as Ken alluded to, we have to be the board that helps bolster their efforts and coordinates so we don't have duplication of efforts, but also recognize that we have 3 Nevadas, Southern, North, and Rural, and they all have their own unique needs, but we have to drive those needs. Before moving on, I'd kindly request that any member of the executive committee who arrived late after roll call was taken, to please identify yourself at this time so you can be marked present. I don't think anybody did, Katie.
Mr. Hammond was late.
Well,
Thanks, Katie, for calling me out.
I wasn't going to do, well, that's very unseemly of you, Katie. That's all right. The boss will have a word with you after the meeting.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, moving on to number 12, members of the public are invited for final comments. You see anything on the phone or the Zoom, Katie?
No.
All right. Hearing no further comments, I hereby move to adjourn and want to thank you all today for your attendance and your participation, and hopefully you found it useful. Until next time.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Great meeting. Thanks again to all the presenters.